Yesterday, the president gave a major address in support of his Iran nuclear deal, while aggressively attacking critics of the deal. So let's break down some of the more troubling parts of the president's remarks. The president said that this deal, quote, permanently prohibits Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, end quote. This is patently false. If Iran keeps to the letter of the law on this deal, it will guarantee Iran will become a nuclear weapon state at any time of its choosing after 10 to 15 years. This is because the Sunset Agreement, which ends all restrictions, was incomprehensibly conceded way back in November 2013 in the interim agreement. The president said, quote, let's not mince words. The choice we face is ultimately between diplomacy and some sort of war, end quote. The opposite is a more likely scenario. With no constraint on Iranian hegemonic ambitions, billions in sanctions relief, and ending restrictions on their conventional weapons purchases, more than a strong case can be made that the risk that American soldiers will be drawn into another Middle East war will increase, not decrease. When Iran realized there was absolutely no chance that this administration would ever use force, the Iranian negotiating position was dramatically leveraged in their favor, as clearly evidenced by this very weak agreement. And this agreement is between a superpower and what is really a third-rate terrorist-supporting state. The president said, hardliners in Iran who chant death to America are making common cause with the Republican caucus, end quote. Well, it's the hardliners that are the people we've been negotiating with. President Rouhani, who led a Death to America event in Iran right after the deal was concluded, and the Supreme Leader, who also said Death to America as his conciliatory gesture after signing on to the deal. It is beneath the presidency to compare the Republican caucus to Iranian hardliners like Mr. Khamenei. Yesterday, Secretary of State Kerry said, quote, this deal is as pro-Israel security as it gets, end quote. According to the New York Times, an anonymous administration official said this deal is, quote, a no-brainer on how good it is, end quote. So let me get this straight. Mr. Kerry knows Israeli security interests better than the overwhelming majority of Israelis who are against this deal and who have to live with the consequences of the deal. Both the current Israeli government and the opposition think this is a bad deal. So after reading all 159 pages of this agreement, which concedes so many points, I cannot fathom how or why the administration is so tone-deaf to legitimate criticism. The president said, quote, only Israel opposes the Iran deal, end quote. Mr. President, the majority of Congress and the majority of the American people are against this deal. Scapegoating Israel in this way is beyond troubling, and it encourages anti-Semitism. Mr. Kerry went on to say that if Congress were to shoot down the Iran nuclear agreement, it would be, quote, the ultimate screwing, end quote, of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Is that what Mr. Kerry is worried about? American national security interests should be the primary concern, not insulting a man who says death to America and whose nation, Iran, has killed more American soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan with Iranian-made IEDs than ISIS has. One of the most troubling concessions of the Iran deal is the section that allows Iran to legally cancel the deal if sanctions are reimposed for Iranian transgressions. So let's get this straight. Iran will get $500 billion in sanctions relief over the next 5 years. Then it decides to cheat. It can then legally walk away from this deal if any consequences are imposed. Who wrote this deal? My friend Senator Kirk of Illinois pointed out that one sentence stood out in the minds of many Senate members. Paragraph 10.2 of the agreement's Annex 3 would require, quote, cooperation through training and workshops to strengthen Iran's ability to protect against and respond to nuclear security threats, including sabotage, as well as to enable effective and sustainable nuclear security and physical protection systems. The U.S. Senate should reject this agreement, is what Senator Kirk said, for many reasons. Lead among them is the possible commitment of the United States to help Iran defend its nuclear structure. The United States should play no role in defending Iran's nuclear infrastructure.